Jenna thought she'd been abandoned. Again. Another attempt at finding love had just begun, only to collapse before it even had a chance. She sat alone at café on Charles Street, fingers wrapped tightly around a cup of chamomile tea gone cold, trying to convince herself it didn't matter this time, that she was used to this feeling by now. But right then, the door swung open. Two little girls, maybe 6 years old, stepped inside, wearing matching red coats. Their bright eyes shone with a strange kind of determination and a secret yet to be revealed. They weren't supposed to be there, and their father, whoever he was, had absolutely no idea. Within minutes, the words they spoke would turn what seemed like a failed date into the beginning of something neither Jenna nor he could have ever imagined. This story is for everyone who's ever frozen their heart shut, for those who lost love and thought they'd never find it again, for those brave enough to love after pain, after betrayal, after loss so deep it crushed the soul, and especially for the small hearts with enormous courage, for the children who somehow know what adults often forget, that love is always worth fighting for. Because sometimes second chances don't come the way you expect. If you too believe that fate has its own way of arranging things, hit subscribe and stay with me through this story, because who knows? Maybe you too once had your own 17-minute late date. Now tell me, what do you think those two little girls brought that would change her life forever? Jenna Carlisle looked down at her phone for the 7th time in just 3 minutes. 6:47 p.m. 17 minutes late. She sat alone at a corner table in Tata Bakery and Café on Charles Street, right in the heart of Beacon Hill. The cup of mint tea in her hand had long gone cold. The cozy autumn air of Boston, the kind that usually made this cafe feel comforting, now only made her chest feel tighter. Around her, couples leaned close, whispering and laughing softly. The clinking of spoons against cups, the hum of jazz blending with gentle chatter. And she, the only one sitting alone. 3 years. 3 years since Jenna buried herself in work at the veterinary clinic in Back Bay. 3 years since she'd told herself, work is enough. I don't need anyone else. That when a heart turns to ice, it can no longer be broken. But Betty Collins, the most energetic and talkative co-worker at the clinic, wouldn't let it go. It's just one coffee, Jenna, Betty had insisted 3 days ago, blocking the break room door. Andrew Callahan, 35, architectural engineer. Trust me, he's amazing. Trust me. 2 simple words, but for Jenna, trust had become a luxury. 3 years ago, she'd trusted someone. Marcus, the man who had promised her everything, then vanished the moment she needed him most, when her father passed away, when the clinic debts weighed her down. Marcus had taught her a brutal lesson. Never let anyone get close enough to hurt you again. And now, as she stared toward the cafe door, that familiar feeling returned. Disappointment, bitterness, the faint sting of someone who once dared to hope. 6:51. The bell above the door chimed. Jenna looked up, her heart skipping a beat. A spark of hope flickered, one she tried to extinguish immediately. But the person who entered wasn't the kind 30-something man with the gentle smile Betty had described. It wasn't Andrew Callahan. It was 2 little twin girls, about 6 years old, wearing matching red coats, light brown curls bouncing, and eyes filled with determination. The real story began at that very moment. The girls couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Their chestnut curls bounced lightly with every step, and their bright blue eyes scanned the café with a kind of determination rarely seen in children. Both wore identical red coats over their school uniforms, their hands clasped tightly together as if afraid of getting lost in this strange, grown-up world. Then those eyes landed on Jenna. Before she could even process what was happening, the girls marched straight toward her table with the confidence of tiny soldiers on a top-secret mission. The taller one, by barely half an inch, stopped right in front of Jenna, tilted her head, and asked with utter seriousness, "Are you Miss Jenna?" Jenna blinked, startled. Yes. And you two are—" "I'm Poppy," the girl declared crisply, then pointed at her sister. "And this is Sadie. Our dad says sorry for being late." The world around Jenna seemed to sway slightly. These were definitely Andrew's daughters. But Betty had never mentioned that he had children, let alone twins. "Dad had to stay at work," Sadie said softly, her tone calmer, gentler than her sister's. "There was an emergency." "Sadie!" Poppy quickly clapped a hand over her sister's mouth, glancing at Jenna with a mix of embarrassment and concern. Jenna's surprise must have shown because Poppy let out a sigh, a strangely mature sigh for a 6-year-old, then pulled out the chair across from Jenna and sat down. Her sister obediently took the seat beside her. "All right," Poppy said, folding her arms on the table like someone about to lead a meeting. "We think we should tell the truth." "The truth?" Jenna raised an eyebrow. "Dad doesn't know we're here," Sadie whispered, her eyes flickering with guilt. "He doesn't?" Jenna began, but Poppy jumped in before she could finish. "But he really wanted to come. We heard him on the phone last night." Jenna leaned forward, curiosity piqued. "Last night?" Sadie nodded, her curls bouncing. "We were supposed to be asleep, but we heard him talking in the hallway. Someone called about a big problem at the new library project. Something about the foundation. Dad said he couldn't believe it happened tonight of all nights. Then he said he had a very important date at 6:30 at Café on Charles Street," Poppy added proudly, brimming with confidence. "And how did you two know this was the right place?" Jenna asked with a smile, unable to hide her amusement. "We're smart," Poppy replied matter-of-factly. "Because Dad wrote the cafe's name on the kitchen calendar. He circled it 3 times and drew a smiley face." Something warm spread through Jenna's chest. A smiley face. "Dad was really excited," Sadie whispered, her voice as soft as a breeze. "He even ironed his clothes yesterday. He never does that." Jenna laughed, a rare, genuine laugh on what had felt like a hopeless evening. These 2 little girls, with their serious faces and tiny secret mission, had somehow turned a failed date into something entirely different. "So, when we heard Dad say he might be late, we made a plan," Poppy explained, firm and composed. "We asked Mrs. Ruth, she's our babysitter, to drive us here. We told her it was super, super important." Jenna glanced out the window. Sure enough, an elderly woman sat in a sedan parked by the curb. Her expression a mix of confusion and patience. When she caught Jenna's eye, she smiled and gave a little wave. "We had to beg her," Sadie admitted, her cheeks turning pink. "Maybe we cried a little." "Strategic crying," Poppy corrected solemnly. "Necessary for the mission." Jenna bit her lip to keep from laughing. These 2 were remarkable. Small, stubborn, and perhaps so irresistibly endearing that they managed to warm a heart she thought had long gone cold. "Would you girls like to sit with me for a bit? Maybe have some hot chocolate?" The twins' faces lit up like Christmas lights. Poppy jumped off her chair, dashed to the window, and waved wildly at Mrs. Ruth sitting in the car outside. The elderly woman sighed, but eventually nodded, smiling with a look of resigned affection. When the girls returned to the table, Jenna called the waitress and ordered 2 mugs of hot chocolate piled high with whipped cream. While waiting, she quietly studied Poppy and Sadie more closely. Beneath their confidence and mischief, Jenna saw something else, a quiet sadness, a weight that children their age should never have to carry. "So," Jenna asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "does your dad go on dates often?" The question hung in the warm air between them. The girls exchanged glances, their eyes speaking silently. Then Poppy slowly shook her head. "Never," she said softly. "You're the first one, since Mommy went to heaven." The hum of the cafe, the hiss of the espresso machine, the clinking of cups, all seemed to fade away. Jenna felt her heart tighten. "When did that happen?" she asked gently. 2 years ago, Sadie replied, her small hands twisting the edge of her coat. "Right after we started kindergarten. Mommy got sick really fast. The doctor said there was something in her brain. Aneurysm," the cold medical term flashed through Jenna's mind, but she didn't say it. Instead, she reached across the table and took Sadie's tiny hand in hers. "I'm so sorry," Jenna whispered. "Dad takes care of us all by himself," Poppy said proudly. "He learned how to braid hair from YouTube videos." "Really?" Jenna smiled softly. "He watched them all week," Sadie added, a small grin spreading on her little face. "At first the braids were really bad. My hair got all messy." "But he kept trying," Poppy said. "Now he's really good at it." When the hot chocolates arrived, the whipped cream towered like little white mountains. The girls lifted their mugs carefully, trying to sip without getting cream on their noses. Of course, they failed spectacularly. Within seconds, both had white mustaches, looking like 2 tiny, serious old men. Jenna laughed, a real, heartfelt laugh, the kind she hadn't felt in a long time. "Dad also makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches," Sadie said, licking a bit of cream from her lip. 3 kinds of cheese, and every night he sings Mommy's favorite song for us. He doesn't sing as well as Mommy did, but we don't tell him that." Tears welled in Jenna's eyes. She pictured the man, Andrew Callahan, staying up late watching braiding tutorials, doing everything he could to bring a sense of normalcy back for his daughters. A father quietly learning to move through grief, standing tall for 2 little girls who needed him more than anything else in the world. "Dad was really nervous about tonight," Sadie said softly, as if revealing a secret. "He changed his shirt 4 times." 4 times? Jenna laughed, fully caught up in their story. "And he practiced talking in front of the mirror," Sadie added, her eyes widening. "We weren't supposed to watch, but we peeked through the door crack." "What was he saying?" Jenna leaned forward, genuinely curious. Poppy straightened her back, cleared her throat, and tried to mimic an adult's deep voice. "Hello, I'm Andrew. Nice to meet you." She paused, frowned, and shook her head. "Hi, Jenna. No, that's not right. Jenna, hi, I'm Andrew Callahan." "Then he said a bad word," Sadie whispered, eyes round as marbles, "and decided he'd just be himself." Jenna laughed. Not the polite, strained laugh of a failed date, but a real one. Light and genuine. She felt something inside her chest begin to melt, to soften. Then Sadie suddenly grew serious. "Dad really wanted tonight to go well. He never breaks a promise, so if he had to stay at the site, it must be something really important." Poppy nodded firmly. "Dad designs buildings to keep people safe. If something's wrong with the foundation, the whole structure could fall. He always says safety is his responsibility." And in that moment, Jenna understood. The 2 little girls sitting before her weren't just adorable accomplices trying to save their father's date. They were protectors, defending their dad's happiness with all the love their small hearts could hold.